For this part 2 of Easter egg toppers, we've got glasses and we've got Easter bunny ears, and we've got a tiara. But anyway, going back to the glasses, you can actually wire in beads. They make them look a little bit weird and wonderful, but that's up to you. So we're starting with some 0.6 aluminium wire, but you can use any wire you want to make these. You can use much thinner wire. And you just create a shape around bail makers or anything round, and then bend one side up. So you can see I've left a tail, and then I'm making the little nose bit of the glasses. So you'll use your round nose pliers just to make that little kink where the nose sort of area is, and then kink it back up. So you're just basically creating this shape, and then around a mandrel of any sort that you have, a pen, or I've got these bail makers that make it nice and easy. So you can make these any shape as well. It doesn't have to be round. Round is the easiest. And then bend the wire out to the right angle again on the other side. So you've got the other side of the glasses. And roughly, depending on the size of your chicken eggs, but you might be using duck eggs or bigger eggs, I leave about an inch on each side for those, but really it's up to you. So cut off any excess. I've left here, they're not even, but I try and leave about an inch protruding or projecting out on each side. I was doing it by eye, but I think if I just get my ruler and I can just work out, there's 1 inch on one side and or 2.5 centimeters, and there I can measure the other end. And once you've done that, you're almost there. Basically, you just want to hammer those very ends so that they haven't got any rough bits. So get your steel block, get your hammer, hammer out just the very ends of those wires that make them spread and sort of mushroom out. And that means you've got flat, mushroomed out areas, not spiky cut end. And that will also help stabilize it when you form it into a circle, and it will sit better on the egg in the end. So there you have it. To make the shape of the glasses, put it back onto your circular mandrel and push the wire around to create that rounded shape. Use your hammer again. You can use either your nylon head or you can use the steel, as long as you tap it very gently, just to make sure that you've work hardened it and shaped it properly. And really, that's about it. That should be it. And if you want to wire in beads into the, you can just use 0.4 to wire the beads in, but as I say, just as little spectacles, these work very well. What I would get first is get my egg, check it fits, and then I would mark where the eyes are, and then draw the face on or paint the face on. That way I know that it will fit, the eyes will fit inside those glasses. So there you have it. Those are the spectacles. So I hope you enjoy making those. And then there's plenty more other little projects as well. So do carry on watching for some more projects. The next one I'm going to do is going to be the rabbit ears. This one is with beads in, but you can really choose to do it either with 2 pieces of wire and then weave within those areas. That's one way of doing it. It takes a bit longer. Or you can actually use 1 piece of wire here to create the loops. It's not as effective, but it's another way of doing it. So you wrap the wire around and then again for the inner circle, and then round again and then for the inner circle, and then you bind that piece on to the tiara base. But I think I'm going to do this one. It's just more fun and it's easier to make. So that is just the same tiara base with the ears bound on. So if you want to follow me, I'll show you how I do those funny little sort of leaf shape ears. So make your tiara base just as you did before. Bind it round a circular mandrel, cut it off where it overlaps, and then secure one end around the base, circular base, and then we're going to spiral the other end to cover up the workings. So just bring just the very, very tip around, squish that down so it's nice and firm, and then take the other end out and create a little spiral that covers up the wrap. So all the bases are made in this way, and then what I do is hammer the outer frame to make sure that it doesn't misshape in any way and it stays nice and firm and it's rigid, because you want to use these every year, so you don't want something that's just going to fall apart this year. You can put them away for next year. So make that nice and firm. Now that's the base. Next we want to make the ear part. So working from a spool of wire, leave a good sort of 2 inches or so. This really is dependent on how tall or how big you want these ears to make, and shape a sort of rounded edge. Use your fingers to make that sort of leafy ear shape. So you just mold it with your fingers, and then when you've decided on that height, take the end of the wire and wrap it around the stem, and that fixes your first ear. Now you want to bend the wire, so you want to leave a gap between the next ear, and then bend it up again to a right angle, ready for the next ear. And I never get these right, but again, it's just a bit of fun. Try and get them the same height as the first one. Use your finger or a mandrel just to create that sort of rounded edge to form it. Cut it off, leaving a little bit of excess because you want to use that to wrap and secure at the base of the ear. So using your tips of your chain nose pliers, you can just bind that around once. You don't want it too bulky there. And take off the excess and make sure it's nice and neat. So there's the framework for the ears. And you'll need to hammer these because you want them to be work hardened. So don't hammer the where they're joined. Just hammer the outer edges of the ears to work harden and flatten those sides. So it's just very gentle hammering to make sure that the shape stays in place and won't, over wear and tear, it won't change. And now what I'm going to do is choose some beads to put down the center. So you can choose your color schemes. This is where your children or your grandchildren can get involved with choosing the colors and what beads they want to put in, and use some 0.4 lovely thin binding wire. I'm taking quite a long piece because I'm trying to hopefully I can use one piece for the whole lot of binding, but obviously you can keep cutting. So I'm starting off at the tip of one of the ears, but really you can first of all bind it onto your base. It really doesn't matter how you do this. This is really up to you, but I'm just going to start off there. So secure it a couple of times by binding it around the very, very tip. It's a little bit fiddly, but once it's in there, just squeeze any of these edges down so they don't spike you when you're holding it. And then bring the wire down the center of the ear, and then pick up whatever beads you've chosen. I've got starting with a bugle bead first, so that it's sort of near the tip of the ear, it's not too wide with beads. And then I've just got a choice selection, and you just feed as many as will sit within that gap, within that area coming down. So that's, you know, up to you for your color scheme, up to you for your beads. And you might, if one ear is slightly longer than the other, you might have to sort of use a filler of tiny little seed beads, because, you know, one ear might need more beads than another. So fill up the gap, and then you're going to bind at the very base. So here I am binding it right up and around, so they're secure in place. And the next thing is to connect it on to my tiara base, because I can use that excess wire to start the binding process. As I say, you can do this in any way you wish. You can bind it on first and then put the beads on. There is no technique. It's just, you know, somehow you've got to get the beaded ears onto the framework. So I'm just going round and round and round, binding it on as securely as I can, keeping it relatively neat. And if you wanted to bind some beads on as well as just doing the binding wire, of course use little seed beads or little crystals. If you want to over embellish, this is where your creative juices can really flow. Just go to town. It's all fun, and it's all decoration. And you know, these little things are really just to decorate your Easter table. And of course, I'm making them for boiled eggs, but you could do them. You could decorate your chocolate eggs in this way. So just carry on binding all the way, which I have done here. I'm jumping up and showing you that I've done all the binding in the middle, and then I've come down to the second ear, because you don't want to watch me do this repetitive binding all the time. And there you have it. You just get to the end and cut off the excess, neaten up any ends, and you've got your little rabbit ears ready to go on the egg. And there you have it. So do keep watching. I still have another decoration in store, and just maybe you could come up with your own as well. There are many different variations that you could create. But the next one I'm going to do is this little seed beaded tiara. So this is very girly, and if you have a princess in your family, I'm sure this is the one for her. So for this, you'll need some seed beads, any colours of your choice, and of course you want to make the base of the tiara first, which is using the circular mandrel that fits your egg head, and then you can just secure the end around that circular base and make sure that's nice and tight. And what I should add, actually, with some of these, say especially the rabbit ear one, they are quite top heavy because they've got that beaded decoration at the front. So when you put them on the egg, you might need to use a tiny little bit of, I don't know, adhesive, or not adhesive, but some sort of putty, just to make sure that they don't slip off all the time and then, you know, not going to fall. But that spiral that I've just made at the end, if that's quite big, that actually helps to stabilize the little topper on the egg. So don't make that leave that tiny spiral, you know, too small. Make that one, it sits on the back and it holds it and stabilizes it. So fold it back down to cover up the binding underneath, and there you've got your base ready to create the tiara. So again, 0.4 wire, cut a nice long length, and say, you know, sort of an arm's length, And then we're going to bind the center of this to the center front of the circular base. So you'll need about 2 or 3 wraps. So just go around 2 or 3 times. So you'll have 2 wires protruding. Just make sure it's nice and secure and it's not going to wobble around. So, and then bring those 2 wires together and give them a little twist so they're connected. So twist about 2 or 3 times to make sure they're connected really closely. And that gives you 1 stem with the 2. And now just bring them together with your fingers, and you can thread this is my focal crystal. I'm using a crystal, so I'm going to have 1 bigger focal crystal for my tiara. So I've just picked up a lovely green Swarovski crystal, and I'm feeding it onto the 2 wires. The 2 wires, so that's the 2 0.4s, and pushing it down over that twisted area of wire. And now I'm going to feed on a few of my seed beads. So this is completely, don't forget, I'm not saying this is, how you have to, you can go to town making your own designs. You could go do a twisted tiara stems with little pearls and make it very sort of wedding-like. But I'm putting on some seed beads now, little turquoise seed beads, on the 2 wires again. So I'm going, I think, 3 of these seed beads, just to bring some height to the tiara stem. No, let's go 1 more. So 4. That brings a little bit of height from the crystal at the base. And then now separate out those wires so that you can work on one side of the tiara and the other side. So you can sort of just shape them a little bit before you start beading, so you can see how much wire you need and how many beads you'll need on each side. We're going to do it's a sort of heart shape, a fountain heart shape coming out from the top. And so now you'll again pick up your little seed beads to create those sides. Just feed them on the end of your wire as if you're picking them up with a needle, and you'll have to count how many you need for one side. And once you've established that, I've got about 16 or so, establish that on one side, then you know how many to do on the opposite side to keep the balance. So there we go. Just get them as long as you want them to be, and then bind it tightly onto the frame right close up to that first crystal. You can just scooch it along, and that will be one side. And then you'll just follow the same pattern for the other side. And then to continue round the sides, you can just do sort of a scalloped edge of half rounds. And once you've got your pattern established, you just repeat counting the beads for the sides of the tiara. So I've created a pattern using this pink and the blues, and then you just keep binding around, making these sort of little half circle patterns going around. So you could stop there and just have a center for your tiara, or you can carry on beading all the way around, which is much nicer, obviously, because you'll see it in the round when it's on the egg. So just carry on, and if it's misshaped, put it back onto your mandrel to make sure that the whole piece looks, shapely and nice and uniform. And there you have a little tiara ready to perch on your painted egg. So have fun creating these crazy little egg toppers for your Easter table, and do come up with your own, because there are plenty more that I'm sure you can come up with. Happy Easter.